The invention of the automobile dates back much further into history than the 100-year-old industry we know and love called the car business. Leonardo da Vinci had drawn plans for a motor-powered vehicle back in the 1500s. By the 1700s, vehicle experimentation had begun with steam, electric, and combustion-powered motors. By the late 1800s, horseless carriages, as they were often called, were thought to be a toy of the rich. The first production vehicles in the United States were manufactured by Charles and Frank Duryea. They sold 13 automobiles in 1896. Ransom Olds, another industry pioneer, sold 425 of his 3-horsepower Oldsmobiles in 1901. The auto industry had been officially born, and as a result, hundreds of manufacturing companies sprung up to build automobiles for the American public. One of these new companies was the Ford Motor Company. It was formed in 1903 by Henry Ford. His objective was to build a car for the masses, not the rich. Initially, Ford built a 2-cylinder Model F for $1,200. 20 years later, he was selling a 4-cylinder Model T for only $290. Ford had succeeded, and cars became a way of life. Today, the auto industry is the world's largest manufacturing industry. In the United States, the new car dealerships alone employ 1.12 million people, with an annual payroll expense just shy of $53 billion. Few advances could be as penetrating, wide-sweeping, and as life-altering as the automobile. The Internet, however, is one of those advances. Most of us know the Internet to have come into existence in the mid-1990s. However, the networking of computers for data sharing dates back to the 1950s at the Defense Department's RAND Institute. In its earliest form, these networks were for researchers to collaborate and share information from Pennsylvania to California. Over time, the networks evolved and grew. However, the Internet's growth didn't explode overnight. There were two things holding it back. First, the networks that existed were government-funded to be used expressly for research. The ban on commercial use of the networks was lifted in the mid-1980s with the advent of public Internet service providers. The second issue holding the Internet back was that the technology to grow the Internet simply didn't exist. Most people didn't even own computers. As networking technology and the public's use of personal computers increased, the door for the Internet boom was open. In the early 1990s, computer usage and Internet connectivity hit its tipping point, and usage began to explode. Today, the Internet is essentially a public network of networks, connecting approximately 1.1 billion people worldwide. If the automobile opened up our economy nationally, the Internet has now pushed it globally. There's no question the Internet has created a wealth of opportunities. And for the car dealers, some of the richest opportunities left untapped lie at the intersection of the Internet and the auto industry. The questions are, what opportunities are there for car dealers to grow online, and how can I as a dealer capitalize on them?
Jared and I were discussing best practices. I think both of us are just industry fanatics who wanted to see the industry and ourselves as professionals progress within the industry, and so we started talking about statistics.
We looked for the particular hot topics facing us in our dealerships today, and we went out and said, who are the most successful, most achieved, and brightest people in this particular space? And then we tried to go out and meet with as many of them as possible to learn from them.
And that was sort of our objective, was to create this forum for real information, for pure data, and then find applicability for it for the dealers.
We wanted to know about search. We wanted to know about website design. We wanted to know about sales process. We wanted to know about structure. We wanted to know about online marketing. We wanted to know about reporting. We wanted to know about leadership. All of the different facets that affect us in transitioning our dealerships from traditional, well-run, dealerships to leveraging this new medium that we have, this new tool and this new communication device called the internet. So here we are, traveling the country, meeting the best and brightest, learning how to sell more cars online.
As the use of the internet has grown, many expected dealership profits to fall. This is simply not the case. Early in the past decade, as the web's usage took off, new car departments started out in the red, then grew rapidly, only to decline again after 2002. This suggests that economic forces greater than the internet are at play here. Used car departments overall have produced modest gains in the last decade, but fixed operations far and away saw the largest growth. All totaled, in consistent $1982, we as a dealer body are much more profitable now than we were before the advent of the internet. New vehicle margins have also been a widely discussed topic. Looking at new vehicle financial trends reveals a steady decline in gross as a percentage of sales. However, the gross average per unit has actually increased through the decade. It just didn't grow enough to keep proportion with the rising cost of vehicles. Thus, as a percentage, it is down, despite the dollars being up. A larger area for concern is that traditional advertising expenses have continued to climb, despite their loss in effectiveness. This has resulted in the highest advertising cost per sale the industry has seen and is placing more pressure on net profitability than the thinning percentage of gross as a percentage of sales. The internet is the solution, not an obstacle. To continue to grow our net profitability in today's market, we as dealers must get better and faster at growing our revenues and managing our expenses. The internet helps us do just that.
Once you come to the conclusion that everybody's an internet customer, what it says is that you need to have a pricing structure and a business model that ends up being compatible and profitable in that environment. And I know that a lot of dealers are struggling with that right now. But it is not something that's unique to this industry. I mean, you know, this kind of thing has happened in other industries as well.
In my opinion and our experience, is that that's the reason that, one of the reasons that the internet has been threatening to many dealerships. It's the first time that they have been grossly out of control. Because heretofore, they had the goods, they had the cards, they had the money, they had the information about the cost of the car, they had all the holdback information. Today, you can get that information in seconds on the internet. And by the way, you can get it just about as accurately, in some ways as accurate as a dealer.
So is it a fair question to ask, are dealers more or less profitable because of the internet?
Dealers are more efficient because of the internet, and the competition determines how profitable they are. but dealers that don't become efficient in many cases aren't dealers any longer. So
I think really the message now has been adoption. They saw that they needed to change a lot of their processes. Everyone is you know, critical of the dealer sometimes and saying, you know, they're not able to move, they're very old school. Well, really that's not true. Over the past 10 years, there's been some huge changes. A lot of the dealer groups, if you ask them how many of their vehicles are sold through the internet and that kind of thing, you know, they're getting into areas like 25%, 30%. At Polk, we work with these organizations, and they're all looking how can they move into the 45% and 50% of their vehicles being sold through the internet.
I've never seen as easy of a way for a dealership to pump out and create more sales out of outside zip codes other than if they establish a good process, identify the market, and attack it through internet leads.
So it's going to be an exciting industry to work in, but also one in which you have to find all the ways to help increase revenues and help minimize costs.
Organization as a whole needs to look at the internet and really embrace it, because there are efficiencies for all the departments within a dealership. And the way you really achieve the savings and the efficiencies, if there's a commitment all the way from the dealer principal down to the GM, down to all the areas.
There's still pockets of dealers that, you know, are still a little bit behind and haven't quite adopted it, but it's another channel that if they're not there, they know that they're going to lose that opportunity. Because the customers, we've done surveys before, and the customers say, if you're not there, I will not give you consideration.
This is an industry in transition, and it's an industry that is I think thinking deeply about how to string together and pull together the set of solutions and processes and structures and ways to approach things that are going to optimize performance. And one thing's very clear to me: we're going to see the automotive industry over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years master the internet and master how to optimize their processes. And I think it's incredibly exciting.
How big is the internet opportunity? Consider these facts. 83% of consumers use the internet to research vehicles. Polk found that first-time buyers entering the car market listed the internet as more influential than television, radio, newspapers, and magazines combined. An extensive analysis of car buying habits found that, not including physical drive-bys, online search now trumps all traditional media as the #1 most often used source that consumers used when looking for a dealership.
Internet is not a niche marketing channel any longer, that it's now officially the mass marketing channel, and it's been probably the mass marketing channel now for 3, 4, 5 years.
When it comes to the internet, everyone is basically using it to research and buy cars.
You're still going to have the meet and greet, the fact finding, the inventory walk. It's just the way you're communicating with some of these clients is changing, and it's making it more convenient.
The internet is here. It's not going away. I mean, you know, you can bring up all the quotes of people that say this is a passing fad. It just continues to get bigger and bigger.
Everyone knows the technology exists. It's how you use it in the end. What is the business model that you create out of it?
Internet has something unique. You can be sitting in the Timbuktu with 100 miles, nobody there, close to an airport. Guess what? If you have right process in place, you will sell cars.
In the long run, everybody's an internet customer. And if everybody's an internet customer, you can't just stop making margins.
And the number speaks for itself. People who are jumping on the internet bandwagon right now, they are ripping the big reward right now.
There's no doubt that our internet sales have a higher growth than our floor sales, no doubt about it.
Okay, and so today, going into 2008, as a dealer, you got to ask yourself, am I going to be the dealer that gets the unfair competitive advantage, or am I going to be the dealer that pays twice as much to get less because I want to wait till every other dealer proves it and figures it out before I get involved with it?
So as we got going on this, at first we were doing all sorts of homework and we were looking at facts and figures and datas and spreadsheets and graphs. And I think the question was back then, is still the same now, it is how do you take all of this data and filter it back to the operators of the dealership? How do I use all this information to sell more cars or to grow my profits? And so as we started looking at it, it was like, okay, we can break it up into 3 distinct pillars is what we call them. And so you've got structure. Let's answer the question of how do I best set up my organization to execute the internet process and to handle the marketing that we do. 2, what is that process? How does it look? And how do we execute the online sales process if there's a different sales process from the retail floor? And then lastly, your marketing. What are the different levers or triggers that I can pull to get my name out there in front of customers? How do I open myself up and let the customers come in? And as soon as we were able to break it up and say, okay, marketing, process, and structure, things became a lot clearer. So the debate as to which of the 3 pillars would go first really came down to the objective of the documentary, of the project, which was how do you define an appropriate internet strategy for a dealership? And like any good business plan, you have to start out with an analysis of your market.
Our study of online marketing revealed 14 disciplines that are successfully connecting dealerships with customers online. We rank them by order of ease to achieve, providing a systematic path to building an online presence. The first 8 disciplines are considered the must-haves in the digital tool belt of any successful internet strategy. In order they are inventory publishers, third-party leads, email marketing, DMS data mining and segmentation, dealership website optimized for conversions, search engine marketing, search engine optimization, online auctions. These last 6 are next-level marketing tactics because, comparatively speaking, they are still very young in their maturity cycle, and we found a systematic order here is not as important. They are blogging, microsites, e-partnerships, online communities, video publishing, and viral marketing. These 14 disciplines have proven successful and adaptable for all dealership cultures, locations, and with various franchises. Internet marketing is not a cookie-cutter solution. Dealers must have a plan laid out that adapts these disciplines and channels to their particular store's demographic, culture, and objectives.
You know, dealers clearly know if they want to sell cars, they got to be where the consumers are, and the consumers are you know, the majority of them are starting their shopping process online, and that is only increasing. And the amount of information that consumers are able to get online is increasing. The amount of communication that consumers are expecting online is increasing. And this is really across the country. Certainly there's certain areas, you know, like the Bay Area is clearly an area that's very high tech. So there's certain areas where those proportions would be higher, but you know, there's no area where those proportions are, you know, or where that's not happening.
If you think about their advertising budgets in a typical store where they're spending $30,000, $60,000 per month, the stores that are sort of doing things the way they've always done things are the ones who are terribly inefficient in their spend. And so that, you know, people talk about, well, fish where the fish are, right? But that's just not happening yet. We're not seeing the dealers shift their monies completely over in the way that customers are shopping now.
Dealerships really have two piles of money. They have the offline pile and the online pile. And as something new comes in like search, it reallocates this pile. It doesn't take from the traditional pile and put into the new pile. And there's this mentality out there that I can only spend so much on the internet, because if I spend more than that, I'm not able to maintain my presence in the traditional media. And the reality is the traditional media isn't generating the traffic that it once did. So maintaining your presence may feel good and may sound good to you, but it doesn't make good business sense if you look from where the traffic is.
You would not run an ad in your newspaper and send people to your lot, right, which is where you're hoping they go, and not spiff it up. You're going to move the cars around, you're going to make sure everything's washed, you're going to make sure the balloons are out, you're going to make sure the flags are out, right? Every day, people are going to your website. You have to make sure the website is core and centered, maintained, up to date, and it has all of the best content so that consumers that see that from your other marketing efforts actually are impressed by your dealership and want to come to your dealership.
80% of your customers are online, starting at the search engines first before they go into the dealership, yet a dealership, a typical dealership, average dealership, spends 90% of their budget offline. So there's a big disconnect here. But this is where the opportunity lies as well.
You know, digital advertising, I really believe, is where the auto industry, it's going there, it's already happening.
One of the beautiful parts of the internet and participating on the internet and buying leads online is you can track them to a T of how many deals did you close, how much money are you spending on them, what deals are still in the works, and what is your true ROI.
Every time a dealer drives into work in the morning, you're looking at your store and you're saying, does it look good? Do I have the right cars out front? Do I have the right car up on the riser where everyone can see it with the right price point? Are the windows clean? Does the store look, are the salespeople dressed well? Is this the way I want the world to see my store? Do the same thing online.
This isn't that hard. Dealers have been doing this offline for years and years and years, and all we're trying to do is help the dealers realize, take the same types of strategies that you would do offline and move them online.
My tune to dealers today is different than it was 3 years ago as far as getting started. Today, I will speak sacrilege and say, whip out the credit card, start putting some ads out there.
Here's the fundamental truth. There was enough technology in 1960, whatever, for people to go to the moon. Okay? If we can go to the moon in 1960, you can sell cars online today, okay? Getting to the moon is a pretty long journey.
Process is the kingpin to internet success. Without a process, your marketing dollars will be wasted. With a good process, your team will dominate the market. A study of over 1 million internet leads revealed that internet buying behavior does not match that of traditional walk-in customers. 43% of the inquiries that transacted did so in the first 30 days. However, dealers must be persistent over the long run if they wish to stay in tune with the largest segment of buying customers. 57% will buy after 30 days. It's also interesting to note that the belief of web customers knowing exactly what they want is false. In fact, 77% of the purchasing leads bought either a competitive make or a used vehicle, illustrating the importance of selling your vehicle's features and presenting other options to consider to retain more of the purchasers. This trend is accentuated over time, suggesting long-term follow-up trends should lean increasingly towards a used option as time moves on. We found 7 process points that align successful departments with online consumer behavior. A quick response time, transparency in price, availability, and trade information. Provide other options for the guest to consider. Sell the advantages of your product. Use both email and the phone to request appointments. Consistent long-term follow-up. And a differentiated customer-friendly sales process at the store.
Most importantly, you've got to get the process right. You can make the technology changes very, very quickly. You start generating those opportunities, and that catcher's mitt is not ready to go in the dealership, you're wasting your money.
But if you implement a process that's repeatable, that's trackable, that you can get reporting out of it, you're going to be so much more successful than dealers that don't have a specific process that's outlined and implemented.
There's no magic bullet over here. As a matter of fact, the process we have, it's not a rocket scientist. It's the basic principle, fundamental principles. If you follow the basic fundamental principles, meet, greet, qualify on the showroom floor, similar thing on your internet.
You're still going to have a meet and greet, a fact finding, an inventory walk, product presentation, trial close, demo write-up. All those steps are going to take place. And they take place online. But the goal, again, of the internet sales process is how do you create a relationship, build trust, make that customer want to communicate with you, and more importantly, use those tools from the telephone to the emails to get that customer to your showroom floor.
But ultimately, your process has to be rock solid. You have to nail your process. Your management has to buy into it. Your people have to buy into it. You have to track it. You got to know where you're at all times so that you can execute the process exactly as it should be. Without it, you're going to flounder online.
It's statistically proven every single time that the dealerships that get back to consumers faster have higher close rates and have higher success in their internet department. So getting back to consumers today faster is very important and continues to be a huge driver in a successful process at a store.
You need to have a fast response time. Their response time should be somewhere between 11 and 30 minutes across the board average. It's not easy.
We try to call all our customers within 30 minutes because they may still be on the computer. How cool is that?
Everybody is instructed to respond to a customer within minutes. We are trying to achieve 74% response time within 14 minutes. We have done it across the group, not one time, in several months in a row.
To think about the motivation. The internet is filled with information. There's everything in the world that you can find out about the internet. But the two questions that they need someone at the car dealership for are going to be, do you have the car like I want it, and how much is it? And what the consumers are really trying to do, I think, is to find a salesman or find a professional that they can trust, that they can do business with, and that exceeds their expectations.
If you as a dealer are not putting a price response out there to an internet lead, you're pretty much out of the game.
We've been very successful at giving an upfront price. That's been our trademark, that we put the effort into figuring out what is the right price for a customer in the marketplace.
You don't give the price to everybody, but if somebody asks for it, you give it to them because they already have